Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. We've got a bunch of folks in the waiting room, so we're just going to make sure everybody makes it into the session, and then we will kick off. But welcome. It's 1 o'clock. Hope everyone had some lunch or has some lunch with them or has their second, third, fourth coffees, because you're going to want to be amped up for what we have for you today. So we'll get started in just a moment. Welcome in.
That was very East Coast bias of you.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Good evening across the pond. Good morning to our friends on the West Coast. Just finishing your yoga and matchas. We welcome everybody across the globe to today's session. Okay, we're going to give it about 30 more seconds. All right. Excellent. It looks like we got the bulk of everybody in. Welcome to today's AI Advantage session. What sports needs to know to be set up for success in the age of AI. Quick shout out to our partners at Microsoft for partnering with us on this initiative. If you don't know me, let me take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Gina Waldhorn. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Sports Innovation Lab. I'm also the Boca Raton 1991 highest scoring point guard for the Boca Hoop season. So yes, we can talk about NIL deals following this webinar. But I lead our AI and thought leadership and our women's sports club programming here at Sports Innovation Lab. And if you're not familiar with Sports Innovation Lab, and this might be your first session, let me take a moment to introduce ourselves. We are an analytics, insights, and data company that works with the world's largest sports properties, rights holders, brands, and technology companies to use that data and find, reach, connect, and convert their future fan, the most modern and fluid fan. And we'll get into that in a minute. And the reason Sports Innovation Lab set up today's AI Advantage session and is focused and talking about AI in sports is because we've built our business on being at the forefront of the evolving and future sports and fandom marketplace. We've published a lot of research, and today we're going to drop some of those links. Actually, throughout today's whole session, check the chat. We will be dropping links as we go for resources. One of those, which is our library of thought leadership and data-driven research on the evolving sports landscape. And we didn't just introduce a new age of sports, we introduced the industry to a new age of fandom and a new fan that we call the fluid fan. And this fluid fan is the path to growth for the entire sports industry. And as we've talked in previous sessions, we've told you about this fan. They are empowered to choose. They are open to change. And most importantly, because of technology, they are continuously evolving. Their habits and practices and the way they consume media, the way they place bets, the way they watch with friends, the way they want to wear their drip looks drastically different than fans from years ago. And therefore, the way that we use tools and technology and AI has to be adjusted for reaching this fluid fan. We need the right data. We need the right skill set. We need the right access to this fluid fan. And that's why Sports Innovation Lab has developed the only data cloud purpose-built for sports and entertainment that focuses on this fluid fan. We call it the Fluid Fan Graph. And today, when we go through our education and our training, and specifically when we get our hands on keyboards and we start showing you some really cool demos, we will be using the data from this graph on the back end to show you the power of AI when it's plugged into different data sets. And one other important note before we start diving into today's specific content, this fluid fan graph and everything we do here at Sports Innovation Lab has a specific emphasis on women's sports. It's time we had parity in our data, in our technology, and AI can specifically offer women's sports an unfair advantage. When you're lacking certain resources or certain funding, AI can come in with efficiencies, productivity, and opportunities to upskill and accelerate your go-to-market, your sponsorship, revenue opportunities, and much more. So today you'll hear us referencing women's sports, but it's a big part of everything we do and this program here at Sports Innovation Lab. So we kicked off a couple weeks ago. This is session 2. We started session 1 with our partners at Microsoft at the amazing Microsoft Garage in Soho. If you haven't been, try to get it in, check it out. We welcomed over 150 of you to that space, and we really showed you a lot. And we really dove into, one, some of the sense of urgency around AI and why we're all kind of feeling this sense of urgency. And there were a lot of pictures taken of this slide, so I wanted to bring it back up. This is the time it took these different technology platforms to get to 100 million users. It took Instagram 2.5 years. It took ChatGPT 2 months. And today, ChatGPT has over 400 million weekly active users. So this thing is moving as fast or faster than you think it is. And we got a little open with each other, and we expressed a little bit of our own fears, right? We don't want to be flesh monkeys that are being, puppeteered by the AI overlords, and maybe that's extreme, but there certainly is a sense of this is moving too fast for me, or I don't have the skill set, or is it coming from my job? And we talked about some of our concerns, and actually really that this is a tremendous opportunity for the sports and entertainment industry.
You definitely didn't say flesh monkeys when we rehearsed.
Well, sometimes it can feel that way when it's just the AIs talking to the AIs and we're just in between. And so we all agreed, and the purpose behind this program and today's session is continue to demystify all of the pontification and the thought leadership and get specific to what AI can do for the business of sports. We also want to provide guidance. What do you need to be doing today? What infrastructure do you need to be building for being prepared for this AI-driven future? And finally, it's all about hands-on keyboards. What can you start doing today after you leave this session? What can you demo, what you can try out, and really get you playing with the different tools? Now, a quick recap, because we're going to be referencing some of what we went over in the last session. And again, Peyton from my team is going to be dropping in links so you can go see some of this stuff yourself. We had 3 key takeaways from our last session. 1, we focused on LLMs and what they can bring to specifically sports with a focus on driving fan intelligence to drive sponsorship revenue. And what we did specifically is we took a data set. This is an example of Sports Innovation Lab's fan data. When we took Angel City fans, we're able to see everything they buy, from where they pump their gas to where they buy their groceries and how much they spend. And we put that into an LLM. We used Copilot, and we talked about how we role play and use specific prompts to call that data. We said, I work in sponsorship for Angel City. What can you tell me from this data? What are the insights I need to know to help me target the priority communities to sell sponsorships to? We went deeper and said, all right, let's go with Sephora. Now build me a deck specific to pitching Sephora. Give me the data points that are going to help me convert that account. And then we took it one step further, and we used AI-driven design software like Gamma and Lumen 5 to actually create in minutes, live in that session together, the deck and the sizzle reel and the mock-ups for that pitch. Okay, so that was in session 1. We've got some of those. You can watch what we did in the links. The second key takeaway was you can't do any of this if your data house is not in order. So you need to start thinking about what data do you have, where does it live, how is it organized, and what is worth buying and partnering and going out and starting to collect. And we talked about the fact that when it comes to reaching the fluid fan, it's really hard in sports because there has never been such a disparate entity and a disparate ecosystem of data silos. If you want to know who's watching, it's Nielsen. Who's on social, it's with Meta. And it's really difficult to bring all these sources together. But agentic models, and we'll get into that, are doing just that. And with certain data infrastructure, you can start preparing for that future. And finally, we shared resources and we got you actually using the tools. So we've collected it. We launched the first market map in AI specific to sports and entertainment. And we built you an entire website that you can click directly through and browse all the different tools that we think you should be playing with. And again, all of that is in the chat. So that was session 1. Today, we're going to move from broad LLMs to talk about agentic AI and its specific application to sports and entertainment. We're going to give you more live demos. We're going to talk about how you can maybe think about selling things like merch and specifically tickets. We're going to open this up for Q&A because this is a learning session and we want to hear what you want to learn more about and where you have questions. And then once again, we're going to make sure you leave today with the tools, takeaways, and resources you need to start playing around and building for this AI-driven future. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Josh Walker, who is the CEO and co-founder and obvious shredder of Sports Innovation Lab. So Josh, I'm going to go ahead and let you pull up the slides and drive from here.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Gina. And that was an amazing crash course on what we were able to cover in 4+ hours last time. So I hope you guys all drank from that fire hose. My job today, as Gina mentioned, is really to help you guys take what we did in the first session and move it forward and now thinking about what agents do. And what we have been working on here at Sports Innovation Lab is being very thoughtful about how the world we operate our company in is changing. And I wanted to just help you with a little bit of a context for like what we're about to show you and why it's different than the way we work today. So today, most of you can really wrap your heads around the idea of an application. An application is software. You go in, you do drop downs, you hit buttons. You're telling the application where you're interested in going next. You're searching, you're doing all of those functions. Some of us have been impressed because we've hit websites where there's a chatbot. And the chatbot can have a conversation with us and help us out and direct us in the places we want to go. What we're going to focus on is how we're leaving that world very quickly into a world where software is going to think for us. It's going to know who we are. It's going to use data about us to infer what it is that we're looking for. And it's not going to have to know that we're on a specific area of a website before it starts a conversation with us. I have a crazy vision where a lot of this stuff becomes the next ad that you see on the website, and then the website kind of goes away and you're just talking to something, right? It's not that far-fetched to think that way. There's lots of articles right now that show that websites were designed to be read by search engines. Well, those search engines now are putting AI summaries at the top, and that traffic's going away. So the idea that websites are going to feed AI agents that are going to help you make decisions without you ever visiting those websites is absolutely coming. And we're going to walk you through how that could actually look as we go forward. So we're going to start with a very simple example of a chatbot, because again, it's different than an application. A chatbot is directing you, right? So this is literally the Nets website. And on the bottom, it says, have a question. That's a bot. That bot is designed to help you navigate the world of ticketing within the New York Nets. It is scripted. It knows it's on the ticketing page. It's not on the e-commerce page trying to sell you a jersey. It's on the ticketing page. So this bot already understands the context it's operating in. It's either going to help you with ticketing or parking or schedule or something, because it's working through a decision tree of like, oh, this consumer's here because they're interested in a ticket. And it can walk us through that. But because today's bots are pretty limited, it can only really direct us to other resources. So it pushes me to a scheduling page or it pushes me somewhere else. This is almost more advanced than most websites we've seen in sports. So the Nets are actually doing something a little bit more progressive than others. But what we think is coming is actually something very different and much more exciting. And I covered this in session 1. Session 1, I tried to say, hey, don't learn all the buzzwords. Don't worry about what an LLM is and what RAG is and what things are. But this stuff is helpful, because a lot of times you will see something, and you'll see this when we do our demos. Well, you'll be like, well, how's this different than ChatGPT? And I want you to constantly remember why it's different than ChatGPT. Because as Gina referred to in her earlier slides, your data, your internal data, the information you have on your customers will train these agents to do things ChatGPT and other open models can't do. And there's a reason why that is. They're not allowed, from a technology perspective, they will try, but they are not allowed to see your internal data. So if you know your customers better than the open models, you should be able to have conversations with them that they cannot have with customers on the open web. And if you train those models, the concepts of agents will get better. They will learn how to make better decisions. They will use their reasoning, and they will help convert your customers in a much more powerful way than anything that's on the internet. So we do believe that there are two different types of ways that humans will work with AI. It'll either automate a process, it'll use some environmental sort of signal. Ooh, it's hot today, I should sell this. Or it may use a user prompt, which is like, okay, it's hot today, I need to find something else to wear. So it can automate something or it can augment something. And the more I tried to come up with examples for this webinar, the more I kept thinking, well, it's kind of like a robot. So what's the difference between an agent and a robot? So I asked ChatGPT, and it gave me this answer, and I think it's a really helpful one. The agents are the software, they're the brains. The robots exist in the physical world. But you can think about these agents acting like your robot, because they're going to try to help you in ways that they're interpreting things that you don't need to tell them all the time. So if you can picture the Jetsons or your future where your house is being cleaned by a robot, the agent is the one powering that. It's the brains. Think about those self-driving cars. They have to make a decision to hit the pedestrian or drive into a pole. The brain is the software. The robot's the car and the cameras and all the hardware. So when you hear these terms, agents, and you hear this term agentic AI, the core difference is the agent is trying to do a task autonomously. With some user input, it's trying to drive to a conclusion. Think of agentic AI as a bunch of agents working together in coordination, collaboration to fulfill a job, multiple jobs, pull from other areas of information, and get you to your end goal. This is a very hot topic. People talk about agentic AI, agentic AI. All you need to know is agents do things, and when they work together, the concept of an agentic solution is being developed. That's all you need to know for now. And what I want you to recognize is that your ability to build agents that are most powerful for your business start with, can the agent recognize your customer? Do they know who they are? Can they log in? Can they figure out, oh, this is Jade? Jade, because the agent can look at your internal system, we know that Jade has, in the past, had purchases with your team. In the past, they've paid more for your tickets than they have with other teams, so they like you more. They've responded to some promotional activity that you have. And then if you use Sports Innovation Labs data, we can tell you even more about who that customer is. This is so much more important than going to a party and not knowing who Jade is, because what are you going to talk to her about? If you know Jade and you know her intimately, you are going to be able to offer her things that are going to be super relevant to her, and you're going to convert very quickly this Pittsburgh Penguins fan into some other service or product that you've created. So we have come up with at Sports Innovation Lab a bunch of product ideas that we want to build. We want to build stuff, agents for merch. We want to build agents for ticketing. We want to build agents that help internal sales teams. And what we want the agents to do is be able to say, hey, Jade, we know why you're here. We know who you are. And then decide which of these databases or which of these experiences or which of these products to put in front of Jade. Because if Jade is there to buy a jersey, maybe she also wants to buy a ticket. And if she wants to buy a ticket, she's going to want those really nice seats that she usually gets. So don't offer the, nosebleeds. This is stuff that the agent can do to direct you or to direct Jade into completing a task. And I always think of like picturing a team where Jade walks into the sales room and the promotional person runs right over and says, "Hey, interact with CarMax because they're our sponsor." And then I see the ticketing person run over to Jade and say, "Hey, buy a ticket." And then I see the merch person run over and say, like, "No, no, no, buy the jersey first." What the agent needs to do is decide how to prioritize those experiences, but also how to sequence them so you can maximize the wallet share and maybe get Jade to do all three of those things. Okay. So just think about an agent really trying to make all those decisions so that when somebody comes to the Nets website in the future, they're not seeing a scripted, prompted experience that only focuses on ticketing. They're saying to Jade, "Hey, Father's Day is coming up. Is that why you're here? Are you ready? What can we do for you today?" It's much more open-ended. It has many more touch points, and it can pull from information across your enterprise so that you're maximizing the opportunity to sell Gina anything she needs to sell or buy for her husband on Father's Day. Okay? So we have looked at, and I have looked at, because I'm betting a lot on this technology for our future products, all the different agentic studios that are out there. If I just told you what an agent's going to do, you're going to have to build those agents in a place that allows you to create those different decisions, right? And make sure that there's a way for the agent to learn and say, "Ooh, last time I offered them a jersey, this time I should probably offer them a ticket first." And it will learn that from its experiences. And a lot of the agencies, this is WPPs, they are starting to create these platforms that allow you to enter prompts, check brand guidelines, learn from what they're doing, go out and do web research, probably pull in some creative for advertising and say, "This promotion works better than this one." It can do all that stuff. And we're seeing tons of these tools and examples. And we're seeing them proliferate across infrastructure. Like this is all the back end software. You're going to have agents that help with authenticating people with payments, with web search. You're going to have horizontal and job function agents. They're going to help create code. They're going to help, with sales processes and your Salesforce and your other applications and HR. But as per usual, when you get to industry specific applications, sports will probably still be a little bit of a laggard. We were the last to really get religion on CRM and customer, and fan data. And we're probably going to be a little bit of a laggard when it comes to sports and entertainment. So when we went out and we looked for solutions that could do what we just showed you, there weren't many. So we did what we did in the first session. We started trying to build this stuff ourselves. And we're about to show you guys how that works and where we are as an industry in terms of the maturity, because a lot of the stuff we tried to do was really hard. And some of the stuff we did was incredibly easy and mind-blowing. So we're going to show you that because that's what we're trying to do here. And I think that box, this empty box, will start being fulfilled with a bunch of different things in merch, ticket sales, predictive churn, and other concierge stuff to make the fan experience better. So we will see this box start to get filled in, and we think we're going to be contributing to a lot of those solutions. So with that, I'm going to bring back one of the stars from our first session, Travis. And Gina, you can do the intro here, but Travis has been working with us for a while now, and he's one of those people that you can explain the context of this opportunity, and he can immediately pull our data into the world to make it so much smarter. So really eager for him to show you what he's built for us.
Yeah, and our thinking really was, we want to make sure to show you something off the shelf. This whole AI Advantage program is about understanding there's a continuum of experience and skill set, but how can you go to tools that you probably already use today and start where maybe you've already started something like a chatbot, but take it one step further and start seeing the power of these agents working together across multiple data sets. So Travis, take us away.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. So the platform that I'm going to be focusing on today is Zapier. Many of you guys, I'm guessing, have worked with Zapier over the years. It's effectively an automation platform that makes it really easy to build awesome no-code to low-code workflows. So they've been placing an emphasis in the past few months on creating really intuitive, interfaces for people to be able to create chatbots and agentic workflows. So what we're focusing on today is a very simple chatbot that we created, which is a sales assistant for the Brooklyn Nets. So what we're looking at here is the developer interface. So this is the back end where you can preview your chatbot and help design how it's going to operate. So you've got your directive box here. This is effectively just a prompt that instructs the chatbot on how it's going to operate. You've got this preview here where you can ask it questions like, what can you tell me about our data? And while it's doing that, you can toggle back and forth between mobile view, desktop view. It's very easy to use. It's going to pull up some data from a couple of knowledge sources that we have. You can toggle back between various different OpenAI models depending on your use case. If you authenticate your ChatGPT account, you'll have access to multiple different ones. The default is 4o Mini. So the engine behind this entire chatbot is going to be its knowledge sources. So Josh mentioned the concept of RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. And all that means is your chatbot is going to go and retrieve information from sources that it has. So Zapier very intuitively allows you to add 5 different types of knowledge sources. So you can either add a web page. So this is a Nets sales bot, so we can go to netsstore.com. It's got this cool feature where we can crawl the link for all of its subpages, so you can click continue. You can search for a specific page. You can add it to your chatbot very easily. You can also upload text-based files. So this would be great as an example if you're working with one of Sports Innovation Lab's insight reports. If you've already purchased something from them, which has information regarding Nets fans and their purchasing habits, you can upload it here, or you can upload a table into Zapier's table function. So what I've done for this specific chatbot is took a CSV, which is a data set of Nets fans' merchant spending habits, and I've simplified it a little bit and imported it directly into Zapier, which then allowed me to go to the knowledge source and add it.
And Travis, we talked a little bit about this, but it's super important as we've continued to try to use these off-the-shelf tools to continue to remind everybody where we are in terms of the evolution of the market. These things choke on the bigger data sets, right? So you actually had to do something to make our data more available to Zapier to kind of have it read it. Can you explain a little bit like what you had to do in terms of telling it what to do, how to talk, and how big to make it?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. First, you have a limited amount of rows that you can have in a data set that you use. So many of Sports Innovation Lab's data sets have upwards of 100,000 rows of data. Zapier simply can't handle that much, nor will it even allow you to upload something that large. So what I did is I focused on smaller segments. So for the comparison population as an example, this is just using New York sports fans versus the general population. I also reduced the amount of features, the amount of columns, to focus on 2 specific columns, which are the audience percentage as an index and how much those consumers spend per person as an index to the general population. Another thing that I did just to help as an added measure is I actually converted using ChatGPT the table into a text document and uploaded that as well, just because it's more proficient at reading text than it is at querying data sets. So one thing that's super cool about Zapier is how easy it is to embed the chatbot onto your website. So all you have to do is click this button here, embed. You've got a quick 1-line code snippet. And just to show you an example, this is my personal website here. You've got this really seamlessly integrated chatbot. It's got all of the functionality. All you have to do, I'm sure many of you work with Squarespace. You guys have websites that you built yourself with Squarespace. All I had to do was go and copy and paste that 1 line into here, and then boom, you've got your Zapier chatbot integrated very seamlessly. So just to show, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, the other thing that you did, which I thought was really interesting, is you created the data dictionary to let it know how to read our data. Our data wasn't designed specifically for chatbots. And we have column names like spend per consumer, spend per fan, percent index. Everybody on this call is going to have dirty backend data, meaning not something that's understood by natural language. What did you have to do to just make Zapier aware of that?
So there's two different ways that you can go about it. One is adding a knowledge source, which would be a PDF. I know that when you guys provide data to all of your clients, the first sheet in all of your data sets is a data dictionary. So if you wanted to just simply download that one sheet, upload it here, then your chatbot will have access to that. I also, as an added measure, added it here into the instructions. Because we were only working with 2 columns, it was easy to add it in here. So I gave both a definition of what those features are, but also instructed it how to communicate with users of the chatbot so that it's using natural language that a sales team might use versus these non-intuitive column names. So it says, don't say percent index, say Nets fans are 2.4 times more likely to buy from this brand. So I wanted to pull up a quick example of what a conversation might look like in a live production setting of the chatbot. So I asked it a simple question, we want to run a promotion for a Mother's Day game targeting mothers. So it went and it used retrieval augmented generation to go query the data set and then spit out 3 brands that are relevant to mothers that over-index in terms of the spending for local Nets fans. So Jujubee, Diaper, KiwiCo. So Josh talked about,
and I've done this a million times in different open models on the web. And I just want to continue to see how close they're getting to our business. So I'm like, hey, tell me who I should work with to reach net fans. It will get close to this, but what it won't be able to do is really provide you with a data-driven reason why it chose these brands. And the data that we have will go deeper. It will find those long tail merchants that are not the most intuitive, right? So sometimes like it recommends like the Jordan brand for basketball fans. Some of that's like, duh. This is like where you're going to get like really good brands, and then it's going to be able to refine those recommendations based on actual spend, frequency of spend, and other sort of metrics that we capture in our data. So just continue to keep that in mind, because it's going to look a lot like ChatGPT, but it needs that information to do what Travis is about to show you.
Yeah, totally. And to Josh's point, my next question was, it's Mother's Day. I'm thinking something along the lines of a partnership that involves flowers. So then it pulled up 3 flower shops, florists that are in the database, and it ordered them based off of the data that you just alluded to. Cotton Blossom Flower Shop, as an example, their fans are 14 times more likely to buy from this brand, and they spend 9.25 times more per person. That's going to be an excellent choice to create a cross-promotional campaign. So then evolving past simply using our knowledge sources, what makes this different from the traditional historical chatbots that Josh just pulled up as an example on the Nets page is it's also going to integrate with the LLM to allow you to tap into it and come up with creative ideas, things just beyond your data sets, pulling in outside sources. So I asked it to come up with 5 creative TikTok promotions for this specific flower shop. And right away, it spit out 5 very clever, creative solutions. You can go on and ask it to allocate a budget for you and so on. There's a lot of possibilities.
And Travis, I'm just going to jump in because someone had a good question in the chat about hallucination of LLMs. And we got this a lot last time. And one way to avoid that is the more reliant you are on an LLM to give you those answers, the greater chance you have for a hallucination. So in this flower example, if you go up a little bit, when it recommended that specific flower example, an LLM could hallucinate and tell you a flower shop that isn't even in New York, right? And you might say, that flower shop isn't even New York. Give me another one. It'll say, oh, sorry, you're right. Here's another one. And what it's probably doing is maybe recognizing what flower shop has the most Google reviews, right? And so it is going to use some kind of logic to prioritize, but only when you put in your data that you have on your fans, what neighborhoods they live in, which you might already be capturing, or our data that says what flower shops they actually spend on, or social data that you have that says what flower shops they follow. When you put that data in through multiple different sources, it's going to decrease that LLM reliance, and that's going to help you avoid hallucination. So I think this is a perfect example of what that could look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also speaks to the limitations of an off-the-shelf solution like this versus a custom solution. If you were to invest the money to build out a custom solution, it would probably use a multi-agent orchestration using Crew AI or a similar framework. And one of those agents would be an agent whose specific task is to validate data. So it wouldn't just spit out the first, there would be an agent whose sole task is to evaluate the data before it spits it out to make sure that it's assessing it, not hallucinating. So that's a great point. So many of you guys were actually at the first event. I saw some familiar names. So you might be thinking, well, this doesn't look much different than if we were to just upload a CSV or an insight report into ChatGPT. And it's a great question. And one of the things that makes Zapier unique or distinguished from interacting with an LLM directly or building a custom GPT is that you have access to the entire ecosystem of Zapier's tools. So one of those, which I'm sure many of you guys have worked with, are their workflows, which they call Zaps. So if we go back to our interface here, there's a tab called Logic, where you can add a couple of different types of logic. You can have a link button, which says when somebody types a specific prompt, pull up a link here. What I did is use the Zap button. So I created a Zap, which I'm going to pull up right here. A Zap, again, is just a very simple workflow. You've got 3 nodes here. The first is going to be the trigger. So this trigger just says whenever a chatbot conversation is completed. So after a user has a conversation with the chatbot, it's going to identify the conversation's over and it's going to trigger this workflow. The first is an AI prompt that I gave it. And you can see here in the configurations, you can choose different providers. So you can use Anthropic, which is Claude. You can use Google, which is Gemini. Here we're using OpenAI. I gave it a specific prompt and a specific input field. So in this specific instance, it's taking the full conversation transcript, and it's going to take that transcript, it's going to evaluate it, and it's going to synthesize specific output fields here that are relevant to what this chatbot does. So this is a marketing assistant. So it's going to go, it's going to read the transcript, and it's going to spit out the campaign focus, key recommendations, audience size, engagement metrics, next steps, and so on. So once you have these output fields, then you can create the last piece of the workflow, which is where it's going to automatically create a row in the Google Sheet. So you have here, you attach your Google Drive, the specific spreadsheet, and then you've got columns here in that sheet, and you can map those outputs to your Google Sheet. So what that looks like at the end of a conversation is a Google Sheet that's got, as an example, a TikTok campaign targeting 18 to 24-year-old woman that's going to explore promotions with Sweetgreen, Urban Outfitters, Sephora, and so on. So it's just the tip of the iceberg. There are limitless workflows that you can create with Zapier, but the through line between all of them in this instance is that they're all going to be triggered based off of a specific action within the chat, whether it's the end of the conversation, a specific prompt that is typed, keywords that are typed, and so on.
And I see some folks in here from NWSL and some other leagues. And so I want to just point out the value of a tool like this to a league, right? So this tool is what Travis, about $15 a month. You can be building what Travis built with limited engineering expertise. You could try a free one. You could, depending on how many data inputs, you might have to pay a little bit more, but this is affordable. And if you're a league like the NWSL, you might implore your teams to start using this. And if all of your teams are developing these chatbots and playing around and coming up with promotion ideas, and if, you know, they're all geared towards Mother's Day, or they're all thinking about you're the W and All-Star is coming up in July, having the ability to streamline all of those individual team chatbot sessions into an analysis that captures the key outputs and then organizes them into a single spreadsheet or single kind of recap that makes its way to the league is incredibly empowering for the league, for the teams to learn best practices. So that's just one example, again, especially for women's sports, very affordable, easy entrance in, a way to aggregate and understand and empower your teams and get that single view at the property league level.
And to Gina's point, the technology hurdles to using this are really, really low. You're not going to break anything because you're really not writing back to your own internal systems. You're just learning from them and doing things with them. And you're going to have a bunch of holy shit moments where you're going to be like, how did it learn that? Where did it get that information from? I can't believe that. And I picture the women's sports leagues getting everybody in a room and whiteboarding this stuff, because you're going to learn from each other through that process, but you're also going to get an output that you can start experimenting with. So to Gina's point, really low bar of entry here and really low risk to start playing with this and collaboratively designing with your teams.
So let's maybe show something a bit more advanced. Anything else, Travis, you want to leave us with, or should we keep going?
No, I would just encourage people to go play around. You can check out Canvas, chatbots, build your own agents. It's super easy, it's super intuitive, and it's super fun. So,
and Travis is always around. We'll drop his contact info, and we are as well. We're here to guide you on this journey. So now I'm going to give you an example of, something a bit more custom. And Josh talked about agentic studios and the fact that, holding companies like WPP had these internal studios to start deploying these agentic platforms for their clients. So what I'm going to show you right now is if you were to use something custom and build something, with a lot more engineering on the back end that's creating connectivity across multiple agents as well as LLMs, what might that look like? So this is more than a bot. Right here, you've got the Brooklyn Nets Ticket Genie. This is the internal sales intelligence platform for your ticketing team. And in this example, we're going to say, this weekend is family game night. Who should I target to sell my remaining 400 tickets? And what promotions should I offer them? So again, on the back end here, this is going to coordinate across multiple agents with multiple data sources as well as an LLM. We're going to turn on the AI and we're going to get a result. And what's different here, what you're seeing is one, it's going to pull the priority segments, but it's going to do some reasoning and it will have learned that you want to zero in and that game is this weekend. You don't have time to blast everyone. Show me the top 25% spenders for which I have contact information who are parents of teens. Tell me how much they spend, how many purchases they make. Tell me how many of them I have. They've got 322 and let me access them. I might want to download their contact info. I might want to send it to my HubSpot. So it's starting to work within your own data set. It's starting to do propensity models. It's starting to understand value. Again, we have that in our data, so it's able to do that type of work. And it's surfacing that and enabling you to act on it right away. It's also going to start organizing key behaviors. What else are they interested in? I'm going after parents. Wow, they're spending on restaurants and beverages and finance tools. And how does that connect with what's actually happening in the market right now that might impact a parent of a teen from coming to my game or not? Oh, the Lilo and Stitch movie's blowing up and they're buying lots of tickets to it. Or we're seeing a lot of interest in Liberty merch. And did you know there's a high crossover between parents of teens and the Liberty? So this is mainly a little bit of our data, a little bit of their data, and as well as the LLM pulling market trends. And then it's going to go for those, reasoning and logic and the LLM coming up with its own recommendations. It's going to recap your audience persona. You want to hit the young to middle-aged parents who are looking for more affordable outings. And then it's going to go into ticket sales strategy that build off the back of what we know they already spend money on. So this is recommending a family meal and game night bundle. And again, it's recommending Domino's because that was the #1 QSR spending brand that your fans spent on for parents of teens, right? It's going to talk about coffee culture. And then it's going to go all the way to actually generate a programmatic custom audience, figure out your seed ID, push it to one of our programmatic platforms, and get you live. So you can see it's a long way from the chatbot, which is still incredibly helpful, but this is where an agentic studio is going to start developing specific to sports and entertainment that talks sports, that understands your data, and that's proactive to reason. And we'll give it one more shot. How about
While you're doing this, what Gina's done with Lovable, because you guys have seen Lovable at our last event, that was what helped us make some of the applications when we broke down into working groups. This is an application that can actually render what we want the experience to look like, right? And then you can publish it. So when you're working with the development team, again, you don't need to be a programmer to build something like this. You can say, these are the functions we want it to be able to do, and we want it to then be able to publish an audience and integrate with Trade Desk and LiveRamp and then deliver those ads. Like, that's really sophisticated stuff. That's not going to be done by Gina or by Travis or by this, Lovable tool. It's going to require APIs and hardcore programming and stuff like that. But this really helps a business user communicate what they want the application to do. And this is a very sophisticated use case that would require a lot of that back-end work.
Yeah. And so again, in this instance, I asked, I want to target out-of-town visitors to sell more Nets tickets too. So again, it looked at our data sets. It identified those who do not have New York and certain DMA and CBSAs as their home state. It was over 1,200 specific fans in the data set that it recommends targeting for the upcoming game. It's going through now specific New York-based experiences that travelers would love. And it's generated a whole new set of recommendations for when you do reach out. How should you come up with interesting promotions for these individuals? And now I can create a new custom audience specifically for out-of-town guests. So that's just another example, and I'm going to kind of switch back over now to kind of start to wrap up our session. That is another example, I'm going the wrong way, of what these tools can do when you get a little bit more custom with a agent studio to build a more connected infrastructure of data systems and LLMs and reasoning models that have memory and are being proactive for your needs. And, we talked, and I don't know if Pete is on and can kind of hop up here with us. I think I see him. We showed this slide earlier about a lack of development studios and apps and companies today specific for sports and entertainment. In other sectors like content creation and highlights and player tracking, we have seen tremendous advancements for sports-specific AI companies. But when it comes to these more agentic platforms, there's still a lot of white space. So we've got our eye on a company called Hyperminds that's doing this. There's a couple others, but Pete, wanted you to just chime in on some final thoughts around these agentic studios.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Gina. Hi guys, my name is Pete Scott, and I'm with Hyperminds, and we're gonna have in the next session sort of that ability like you do with ChatGPT to basically make requests across multiple databases. So like Gina showed you earlier, where you can make a query like you would in ChatGPT, we're going to basically show you how we will integrate with companies like Core, Ticketmaster, SeatGeek. So you literally could have a scenario where the Milwaukee Bucks are coming to the Brooklyn Nets, and you know how many tickets you have for sale. We can hit those databases and give you information on who are the right people to target to buy tickets. And in some cases, we'll show you examples of what types of creative that you can do. And where we sit is on top of the ability to integrate multiple different databases and have those databases talk to one another through Gentic AI and their associated agents. So we're looking forward to showing those to you in the next session. And we are actively recruiting teams to talk to audit with. And if there's anyone interested in sitting down with us to see how we could help you look at your current workflows and how Hyperminds can simplify those workflows to drive, more targeted ticket campaigns, we'd love to sit down with you. And Gina can get you the email address, after, or we can send it after the event.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of respect for Pete and his team, and largely because we know that domain expertise are going to be the game changer here. We're not sponsored by Zapier, we're not sponsored by Lovable, we're not sponsored by Hyperminds. We're sponsored by the idea that you guys are going to need to literally think about what systems you need to integrate, and you're going to need people that understand our industry well enough to help you work through that process. Hyperminds is definitely focused on that. And we were like, hey, this is one of the first companies we've seen that can walk you through the agent process. And I think if you're interested in doing that, as Pete mentioned, there should be teams having conversations with Hyperminds now just to audit what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that will make the next version of what we see from these guys even more powerful.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just want to make it simple. So I appreciate you guys having us.
Yeah, thank you
on
for
today.
joining, Pete.
Thank you.
Okay, so agents are great, but the thing that we said earlier is they need something to learn from. So I'm going to leave you with the very, very simplest guidance that you can really take to your team. You got to make sure that the traffic that's hitting your websites and your apps is not anonymous. You got to get people logging in. You got to use signals. You got to figure out who they are. 2 is you need to start figuring out ways to collect more information about them. You can use surveys, you can use prompts, you can use other sorts of things to do that, but you better figure out more than just their name, address, and email. And we can help with all of this because our database is designed to do this. If you're not talking to us, collect more data, use more data, and integrate with partners who can help you learn more about who those people are. So the next slide is really about you guys taking not only authenticated users, learning more about your own customers, but then bringing in additional data sources to round out that picture. And when you do that, you can teach AI more about how to have a conversation with somebody not a stranger.
Yep. And we want to get you guys started now. So as Josh said, our data does it. We know other sources of data to do it. We want to help point you in the right direction. Off the shelf, our insight reports are being used to power models. It's already done the hard work to look at the data and figure out what it says. And it kind of helps accelerate your path down creating some of these tools. We have pre-built segments that you can push into these tools, that you can push into the programmatic AI marketplaces. A+ with Amazon and the Meta Business Suite AI tools can all use our pre-built segments. And if you're ready to start augmenting your own first-party data, we've probably got it. And we've got individual row level, transaction level data that can really take all of these tools to the next level. And we've got it for women's sports, and it's building for women's sports. And we want to make sure that specifically we get this data in the hands of more women's sports leagues and teams. So that's my personal soapbox, to make sure that these tools can accelerate the entire ecosystem with a specific emphasis on women's sports. And so we've got a few minutes left and we want to open it up. We answered a few questions already in the Q&A. Again, our goal today with these sessions is education. What are the words you're hearing? What are people doing? How do you bring a layer of domain expertise to all of this AI thought leadership and help it make sense for your current goals around tickets, sponsorship, merch, and more? And who are some of the tools that you can use off the shelf for $15 a month, or something more custom with development studios and data that you have in-house and data that you can buy? So yeah, would love to hear some questions and open it up.
And Trip, I see your question there. I mean, look, the hallucination stuff that gets a lot of the press and a lot of the attention is going to be very focused on things that require, very ethical decisions. Anytime something hallucinates in our world, in sports, at least in the near future, it might just recommend you sell a ticket instead of a jersey. So I'm not as concerned about that from our vantage point in this industry. But it's a very good question, and it's certainly something that people who care about the ethics around AI and the decisions it's making are going to have to be pay very close attention to. So a little bit above our pay grade. Other questions, guys?
Yes, do not be scared.
There's
don't be
one
scared of the
there's
overwhelm.
one thing I might add is Microsoft is a co-sponsor of this event. If your company is already embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem, if you're using Outlook, if you're using Excel, if you're using a lot of their tools, they've got really a wonderful suite of services called Power Apps, which helps you build agentic workflows that are integrated very seamlessly with Microsoft's ecosystem. So we're happy to connect you with anybody if that is something that would be of interest.
Let's see if we have any other questions in my QA. Isn't working. But we're also, reach out. You might come up with something. You might wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my gosh, why didn't I ask them this question? You can reach any of us. We're all Gina, Josh at sportsilab.com. We'll drop our contact information in here. We have another session coming up at the end of the summer around the August timeframe. So look out for that invite. This session has been recorded. Along with all of those other tools, we have dropped our AI toolkit into the chat. That's where you can access everything that we're producing, all of our market maps, the website with the individual tools. If you want a sample of our data specific to your team or league or brand, we can get that to you. And, we'll be at Advertising Week, some of our team that can. So we're all over the place. We'd love to hear from you. What did we miss? What do you want to hear next? Where are you feeling the urgency in AI with sports and entertainment, so that we'll use that to customize our next session as well.
Yeah, and I just want you guys to know on the last note, you're not alone. We've had 2 of these sessions now and over 300 people, participating. So, if you're feeling like there's a lot to be learned here and there's a lot to share with your colleagues, feel free to send our links around, and we're always happy to answer more questions. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you guys all soon.
Thanks, everyone.